Today I found an unusual reason to why art is relevant and why you should explore it. If you're an artist, that will motivate and inspire you, and if you are not, that will also give you a very different perspective on our culture, on our world, on your world. The first thing I want to tell you is that art, any piece of art, any cultural piece, is a code itself. As humans, we need to conceptualize ourselves to make sense of what happens in our life, in our history, in anything. It is best to explore the world with art, to find a sense of this world aesthetically.
Visually, or with sound, or with music, or with film, with movement, with dance.
To show other people how we see the world that may not be seen by other people, but in case of art they finally can. That is one of the reasons to start creating. That was one of the reasons why cavemen started to create, to show their tribe what the animal looks like, how to hunt him, and how to do those very practical things. I always say that art should be practical and that we should look at practical use of any art. But in fact, even the most unpractical piece of art is always practical. Even if we talk about the most abstract, the most modernist, the most unrecognizable thing we can find, it also is practical in a way that it helps us to see the world in a new light, to see some world phenomena in a new way. It helps us to share some thoughts and ideas, not just in a way of words, which may not always be clear and understandable, but with feelings. The different epochs, the different historical ages have different ways of showing those cultural codes that I'm talking about. Something happens in the world or in personal life, and we need to process it, to think about it. We start to discuss it, we start to put it into words, into literature, into visual imagery, so into visual art, for example, into movement, into dance, theater, etc. And different ages, different epochs have different mediums to it. Before there was photography, there was a need to make it realist. Well, in ancient world there wasn't such a need. There were artworks were more like symbols, and it was very important to recognize those symbols and to make them understandable. So, like alphabet, I actually made a video about this a couple of weeks ago. You may check it out here, about writing, about ancient art, and about how our modern language and thinking connects to it. How writing may be a thought process, and how many advantages does it have in my experience and in experience of people around me. When the photography was invented, there was no need to do things in such a realist way, and art became much more stylized. One would argue that even before that, art was stylized and had distinct style to each artist. But the general line here is that it mostly tried to capture things in a realist way for at least a couple of centuries. And because, okay, we had photography to capture things, to document things in this most realist way possible, at the same time humans needed to capture emotions and feelings and how things actually looked and feel like, and to explore different aspects of any idea or event or situation. That's why people started to explore those avant-garde art movements like Impressionism, Expressionism, Modernism itself, like Suprematism, and Unism, like the museum that I'm sitting here at is almost a home of Unist movement, of AR group that was famous for doing those very strange, sometimes rounded, sometimes very compositional things that became very influential to European art as well. If we think about art as a code, before that period, humans needed to do the code in a very realist, understandable, recognizable way to document things. Then the need to actually document something was outsourced completely to photography, to film, and art was left with interpreting thoughts, ideas, etc. And since that moment, every artist could suddenly share something from his world, from his point of view, something that does not match objective reality. I do not always like modern art. Most of it is not good at all, but a very positive thing that came with it is how now artists could not just be obsessed with reality, with how humans usually perceive world, but with how they perceive world. So as you write code for applications, the same thing artists write cultural codes. The same thing do artists when they do their art. They put things into our actual physical world. They do try to recognize them. They do try to share what opinions do they have. They try to share what actually happened, how people think about it. When we see art from the beginning of 20th century, and it's not abstract still, we often perceive those colors, this style, and it tells us a lot about the age, the epoch that it was done in. It tells us a lot about a mood that was prevailing there. It may not be a complete truth, however, but it's important that we perceive this and that it gets important and known all over the world. When we see films from a certain epoch, different technical details like sepia, or that it was in black and white, or exact style of how people talk also influences how we perceive it, also is a part of that code. So it's very beautiful that artist can, with his thought or without it, completely spontaneously put anything into his artwork, and it will also become a part of history, also become a part of this cultural code. And whether it will actually be a part of history and the cultural code also is dependent on some things, on a skill, of course, on connections, and on how this code integrates into culture. So if you are a programmer, you know that not all code may be just inserted into the program. There are also different coding languages, and code is not random at all. So if you do art, then it also needs to somehow stick into cultural code. And that may not always be obvious. The idea is not about that you should do whatever happens now in culture. Sometimes you should do completely the opposite, but you should see some tendencies, where things go, in your opinion, to make a sort of a bet and to insert your bit of code, your piece of code into it, into the culture that we have. That is also what I'm trying to do. That is also what I do now, and that is something that I have some success with over the last couple of years. With modern media, modern art can be very free. It may be really as free or as technical as you want. As with writing, I always say that the advantage of writing is that handwriting, precisely, not writing in your computer, not writing line by line, is that you can make it as free or as structured as you want. The same thing is relevant to visual art, to painting, to illustration, to calligraphy, and more. I do art myself. There is a strange calligraphy project called Verse-in-Forms. I do Verse-in-Forms. Those are poems that I turn into visual images, letter after letter after letter, and so the thing you see is actually a whole poem. I take poems from all over the world and show them in this very different way. I show them in a visual way, and that is also an expression of me, of things and topics that are important to me, and of the style that I developed over those 6 years. I'm now preparing my first solo exhibition here in Łódź, in the center of Europe. And if you're somewhere near, you can also visit it. I invite you. Talking about code and applications, you can think of many things as of code and as of applications, and visual art has some code that is written by artists, a code that helps to share thoughts and ideas and expressions. But when it comes to writing, to handwriting, I develop applications myself every day, like on purpose or spontaneously, because as I said, I do work with writing not only in this artist and calligraphy part, but I have a whole physical operating system that I develop and that I use, and that people close to me also use and love, and I now make a demo. I now make a first working version of it. The operating system that I talk about can help you and aid you in almost any task that you have. It can help you to do more tasks outside of your computer and in this physical real world. That may be very nice, and that's what I'm experiencing myself, and that's what I taught a lot of people around me. I am doing events constantly on that topic. I am speaking about it. I'm very passionate about sharing new ways to do things, not just to write. It is about not being dull, about having new perspectives on life, on your everyday things, and on your work, and on your creativity. That is what I like, and that is also the reason why I do these videos. So share it with your friends, share it with your colleagues, with your fellow artists. Subscribe to my channel. There will be more videos like this, and videos very different to this. Please visit Calendly link that I put in the description. It's a short talk with me. You will get to know me, I will get to know you, and I'll see whether I can help you with something. And overall, it would be very nice to actually talk to you. Thank you that you watched till the very end, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. And in any case, remember that nothing will stop the idea of art, and that art will prevail no matter what.